Welcome to our weekly program, The Inside Story of Chabad in America through the Mendel Archives. Today, I want to share with you a fascinating story of the Rebbe. This story happened within a few months after the Rebbe took his Nesias in 1951. And since this story is a Baal Shemske story, so we should really say the story Mitzvah Shabbos, as we know that there's a minhag to say a Maaseh from the Baal Shem Tov, Mitzvah Shabbos Kedesh. And as a matter of fact, we already have our Thursday night program already over a year. So we started with Mitzvah Shabbos then, but for some reason we changed it to Thursday night. And maybe we can have this story again posted on Mitzvah Shabbos. Chassidim used to say that Mitzvah Shabbos is a minhag to say a Maaseh for the Baal Shem. So they used to say there's three lav davkes. That Mitzvah Shabbos, is the story of the Baal Shem Tov, and when you say the story, that's a zgula for Parnoso. So there are three lav davkes, not only from the Baal Shem Tov, but from all tzaddikim. And not only Mitzvah Shabbos, but every night. And not only a zgula for Parnosa, but it's a zgula for all good things. So this is a Baal Shemske Maaseh I want to share with you. And I did share this with somebody, and I'll tell you soon when we start. But before we do this story is about the mezuzah. It's about a mezuzah. We'll come to it soon. But before I share this story, I want to read to you a handwritten answer from the Rebbe, also in Tovshin Yud Aleph, somebody asked him, he has a problem, he can't sleep. And the Rebbe, and he wanted to know what should he do. He asked doctors, and doctors just couldn't help him. So he wanted to know what to do. So I want to share with you this story. I want to read you. It's a very short letter from the Rebbe. The letter is written in Hebrew, and I will translate this in English. Greeting and blessing. I am glad to know that his condition is improving. God willing, certainly send him a speedy recovery. In answer to his notification yesterday through his wife, the Rebbetzin, that his sleep is not as it should be, he should not dwell on the matter and should take his mind off it immediately. Yasiach das meizel legamri. Umehanochain, it is advisable that there should be near his bed a kosher mezuzah, not necessarily only at the doorpost of the room, and it is self-understood that if necessary, it should be covered within a cover and the like, because it's in a bedroom, so sometimes you need a cover. But this is a mezuzah on the desk. It is known how much you cherish the words of the Rebbe. The Rebbe means of the Frierdiker Rebbe. I will mention to you what I heard from my father-in-law, the Rebbe, that was a practice by the Nisim. I'm almost sure, this is in parentheses, that the specific, it was about the Rebbe Maharash. End of parentheses. They had lying on their table a note with the words, Shivisi Hashem lenegdi somid. I behold Hashem in front of me. Certainly you had noticed a mezuzah lying on the table of my father-in-law, the Frierdiker Rebbe, when you on the table that he wrote and you learned. And then the Rebbe brings down, look in Masechta Kelim, and see what it says there about a mezuzah in a walking stick, and look there, Pirush of the Tosfos Yontif. The Rebbe specifically wrote that. And Ayin Shom b'Tosfos Yontif. And then he says, I am hoping to hear only good from you. And the Rebbe signed. Then he wrote a PS. If he has roommates in his room, apparently he was in a hospital or a place where he had a roommate, it would probably be a good idea for him to figure out what their situation in regarding Torah mitzvahs and Chasidus. He should find out what about his shochin, about his neighbor. This is what the Rebbe wrote the letter. Now, people, the documents I saw, asked then, after knowing what the Rebbe said, questioned the Rebbe. Why we know that the Torah says, Uchsaftom ha-mezuzos beisecho visharecho. A mezuzah has to be at the doorpost. People never saw Gdolim should put a mezuzah on the table. Or put a mezuzah, as the Rebbe also many times says, in a car. It's not a must, but the Rebbe mentioned to a few people. We never saw that. That's question number one. Number two, some people said that then, even in la halacha, it might look like kishev, sorcery. It says on the door, like the Rambam mentions, sometimes certain people make magic. They put something on their hand, a holy thing, and then they talk to it, and they think that they'll become better. Things like that. So people questioned the Rebbe about that. And this is why the Rebbe put in this letter, knowing, I guess, that people are going to question, look in Masechta Kelim and look what the Tosfos Yontif says. What does the Mishnah say? That years ago, people put they made a hole in a stick, on top of a stick, and they put diamonds and gems in the stick, and they put a mezuzah on top of it. So the Batnura that says that gems and mezuzah, what's the reason for that? Because when they pass customs, they wouldn't have to pay tax. So this was this is what they did. But that's not what the Rabbi mentions. The Rabbi mentions Tosfos Yontif. The Tosfos Yontif says they put a mezuzah in a stick, then they put diamonds in another stick. And the purpose for that, we know, is probably a Schapiro, a mezuzah in a stick. So we see from here, and the Rebbe wanted to prove that even in the time of the Mishnah, they put a mezuzah not only on the doorpost, and that's why the Rebbe mentioned over here, look in Kelim. And this is the answer. So it's not kishev. This is how they used to do amol. Now, speaking about a mezuzah, it says that the Roman emperor gave a present to Rabbi Yehuda HaNossi. He gave him avonim, toives, umargolius. He gave him precious gems, stones, a present. So Rabbi Yehuda HaNossi gave back the emperor a present. What did he give him? He gave him a small mezuzah. So the emperor opens the box and he sees, I gave him avonim toivis umargolias, I gave him precious diamonds, and he gives me a small mezuzah. So he went to Rabbi Yehuda HaNossi. So Rabbi Yehuda HaNossi said, you gave me something I need to guard. I gave you a gift that will guard you. A mezuzah guards. So we see from here that not only on the doorpost, and he was a guy, the Roman emperor was a guy, that a mezuzah guards. This is what it is. Now, since we just said the PS, we just read that the Rabbi told this person that he should have an influence on his neighbor. So here I want to share with you a personal story, and then we'll get to the main story that I want to tell you. When we had our twins, my wife was very sick then. She was hemorrhaging. They couldn't stop the blood. And she was like almost in a coma. She was probably she wasn't the blood, they couldn't stop it until the nurse, the doctor, her name was Mrs. Zilka. She once when she went to the Rebbe once, a whole story about her. Anyways, so what she did, she sat on her to stop the blood of going. That's how and she was Rahman al almost in the other world. And my wife said that when she was in a coma, in half a coma, she overheard that the doctors were saying that she's not going to make it. My father-in-law that night was by the Rebbe taking dictation, and afterwards he went to visit her in the hospital. He came into the hospital, he saw the situation, that the doctor is sitting on her, and the blood is going and they can't stop. He saw the problem. And she was white as a sheet, mamish white. He never saw her like that. So he ran back, took the car, ran back to the Rebbe. He went into the room, he knocked on the door, and he told the Rebbe the situation. So the Rebbe opened his drawer, he put his hand, remember he was saying, like this, into a bunch of nickels, and my father-in-law opened his hand and he put the nickels. He says, give her the nickels for tzedakah, or whatever, I think it's for tzedakah, he said. And since she was one of the first that had to do with the Chabad Cookbook, my wife was the first one, also Mrs. Blau, but she made the cookbook, she and Mrs. Blau. So they should see that if there's a kosher kitchen in the hospital. Meaning that every single thing, everything you can use out for something. If there is an opportunity, the Rebbe uses the opportunity. So this is a Maimon HaMusger, because the Rebbe told this person, the P.S. that we just read, that he should see that the neighbor should do the Torah mitzvahs. Now, I want to get to the main story that I want to tell you, the Baal Shemske story of the Rebbe. Okay. Now, this story, Rabbi Berel Unique, happened Berel Unique, and he told this to his son who passed away, Baruch, who passed away. I discussed once with him the Maaseh. He knew the story. This was in the early, this is 51, in the year of the Nisias. Those days, there was a lot of plagues. There was scarlet fever, typhoid fever, yellow fever, polio, measles, and some people went to sleep and they didn't wake up. In New Jersey, there was a lot of sleeping sickness. They went and didn't wake up. I don't know for what, but this is how it was then. It was a terrible time then. And so, Rebel Unique, and by the way, Rebel Unique is the one who took over from Rabbi Mentlik, that used to pour the wine by Kosher Bracha to the Rebbe, and when the Rebbe came to Farbringen, he poured the wine for the Rebbe after Rabbi Mentlik passed away. He was a sheikhet, and he shechted in the Bronx. So he went, after Shechita, he went home. So he went to the subway. He went into the subway, and he was going home. He sees a Yid with a beard, a Chassidish Yid, not Chabad, and crying. He went over to him and he said, Rabbi, can I help you? He didn't want to talk. Until finally he says, what's the problem? So he says he's coming now from Mount Sinai Hospital. He took that train. It's also in the Bronx. He's going home now. His wife is in a hospital, and she's in critical condition. She's sleeping. She doesn't wake up, and the doctor said that's the sickness, and they don't know that's it. What's going to happen? Unerwähnt. So he says to him, you know what? We're going with the train. We're stopping off. It stops on Kingston Avenue. Come with me to the Rebbe. This was, I think, 3 months after the Nisias, 4 months after the Nisias. Let's go to the Rebbe. He says, no, I sent a telegram to the Kloisenberger Rebbe, to the Belzer Rebbe. I don't want to go. Bekitzer, he convinced him to get off on Kingston Avenue. He went off on Kingston Avenue and he went to 770 to see the Rebbe. He went in, you can't just walk into the Rebbe's room. And secretaries, I don't know who was there, Rabbi. I don't know, maybe Rabbi Groner wasn't even there yet. Or the other secretaries. But Rabbi Mindel and Rabbi Chadukov were there. So he asked Rabbi Mindel, he told him the story. He says, I need to see the Rebbe. Rabbi Mindel says, okay, the Rebbe is coming out to Mincha, and after Mincha, stand by the door, and tell him what you want us to tell him. Oh, no, if the secretary tells him, so he did. The Rebbe came out, I think it was 3:15, 3:30, stood by the door. The Rebbe came to the Rebbe, so he told the Rebbe the situation of his wife. I think Rabbi Bertel is the one who spoke. So at first the Rebbe asked his name and his mother's name and his wife's name and her mother's name. Then the Rebbe said, take a kosher, go and buy or take a kosher mezuzah and go to the hospital, put it under her pillow, and say in her ear, scream in her ear, her name and her mother's name. And when you hear Psuras Tevis good news, come and tell me. And the Rebbe went into the room. So the Rebbe said to this person, let's go. He says, no, I don't want to go now. I'm too tired. I'm going home. He doesn't want to go. So he said, maybe tomorrow. Good. Next day, he went. They got a kosher mezuzah, and they went to the hospital. Both. To Mount Sinai. They came to the hospital. He gave in the room, but he was at the 4th floor. The room wasn't there. She wasn't there. Can you imagine what went through his mind? Anyway, he asked the nurse, the doctor, said she was moved to another floor. I guess to a floor that floor is not the best floor. But she was in the other floor. He went to the other floor. They went to the other floor. He took the mezuzah. He put it under her pillow. And he screamed in her ear, her name and her mother's name. That's it. And there was no movement. They stood there another hour. They were here on the floor. Then they both went home. The husband every day used to visit his wife. Next day he came to visit. 2 doctors told him, there is a miracle. She didn't get up yet. She's still in big sakana, big danger. But we saw a movement. We saw before she was like a vegetable. We saw a little movement. This is something important for them. Bekitzer, it took a long time, maybe a month or 2. She got back to herself and she became well. So the Rebbe told him, he says, listen, you didn't finish your shlichus. The Rebbe told you that when you hear Psuras Tevis, good news, you should come and tell him. So they went to 770 to tell the Rebbe. Going up the steps to 770, the Rebbe was coming out of 770, and the Rebbe says, no, you're coming to tell me good news? So they said, yeah. Baruch Hashem. This is the Maisa that happened. This is Abal Shemske Maisa. Now, finishing off speaking about a vegetable, there is a letter from the Rebbe. Somebody wrote to the Rebbe that his mother is a vegetable. And you always say, he says to the Rebbe, that everything in this world is for a purpose. What is her purpose in this world? And it so happened that his mother, the children and the grandchildren, 24 hours a day, they're with the mother. Always with the mother. Then don't leave the mother alone. So the Rebbe answers him. First of all, the Eibishter can make from a vegetable. I mean, we're not the Eibishter. The Eibishter can do miracles. Number 2, the purpose of her living. When people will see the kibbut ava aim that the children and grandchildren have to your mother, this is the purpose of her living. So I want to finish off. The Rebbe says since we're speaking about a mezuzah has 3 letters: Mem, Zu, and Zeh. Mem is Torah. Abayim 40 days and 40 nights. Moshe got the Torah. Zu is am Zugalta goes on the Yidden, and Zeh Keli van Vehu the Eibishter. That a Jewish home should always have a mezuzah. Should always have a kosher mezuzah, and not only on the doorpost, but they should know there should be a home of Torah, there should be a home of Achnosas Orchim, and then you'll have Zeh Keli van Vehu, then you'll have the Eibishter, a partner in that family. And the Rebbe is a helpful that we should be zeiche to the Geula Shleima B'Karev Mamish. Thank you.